Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inspirations from the House. I'm Deborah Kalinikos. I am the founder of the E-Schoolhouse Parent Learning Academy, and I'm also your host and guide here in this weekly series. I'm an engineer turned educator, and I have a real passion for all things that have to do with learning and education. And the focus of this weekly series is for me to bring to parents information about learning and education. So before we get started, a couple of things that I want to let you know. This weekly series is every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time. If you want to participate live, mark it on your calendar. I think you're really going to want to do that for next week, okay? Next week, I have a very special guest, Dr. Julie Rickard. She is a mental health specialist, and she's going to come on and talk to us and answer questions about mental health and our children, especially right now. You know, guys, whether you're sending your children into a classroom and everybody's wearing face masks, or whether your children are doing the virtual thing, we are all concerned with the mental health of our children. And Dr. Rickard has graciously agreed to come and be with us next week. So please mark your calendars. That is going to be a really great episode. I'm super excited about it. So what's this week's episode about? It's called That's Not Fair. Have you ever heard your child say that? That's not fair. So your little 6-year-old is playing with his Legos at the kitchen table, and he's building a castle, and he's been working on it for about 30 minutes. And you tell him, hey, honey, go get your hands washed. It's time for dinner. I need you to clear the table. And he's been working for 30 minutes. And he's like, Mom, that's not fair. Okay. How about this? When your 6-year-old wants a turn at the best swing at the park, but her 8-year-old sibling isn't ready to get off, and the 6-year-old is like, oh, that's not fair. Or how about this? When you drop your older child off for his school before you drop off your younger child, and the younger child wants to get dropped off first. So he says, but that's not fair. Children's understanding of the concept of fair is really quite interesting, okay? But the first thing we have to understand about fairness is what you understand about it. Is fair based on equity? Yeah, everybody gets the same. Is fair based on merit? If you work harder, you should have more. Or is fair based on need? Okay, really, really interesting when you think about it that way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some different scenarios, and we're going to look at fairness in each of these scenarios through those three lenses: equity, merit, and need. Okay, so the first scenario goes like this. Oh, your backyard is a mess, right? And so as a family, you decide you're going to get it all cleaned up. You're going to fix those sprinkler heads. You're going to plant a garden, and the whole family's going to work on this together. Your 14-year-old son really gets into it. He is working hard, digging and moving rocks and wheelbarrows full of dirt and all that other stuff. And your 8-year-old, your little daughter, is, planting some seeds. She's pulling some weeds and she's sweeping up some dirt. But everybody's working, okay? And the family has been promised pizza for dinner. So when the pizza gets here, after everybody's been working all day, your son grabs his plate, your 14-year-old son, okay, and he puts 3 pieces on his plate. And you're like, yeah, he's going to eat that. He'll probably come back for more. Well, then your little 8-year-old goes up with her plate, and she puts on 1 piece. She goes to grab another piece, and you're like, honey, well, just hang on, just wait. And she looks at her brother with the 3 pieces, and she's like, well, that's not fair. Okay, well, let's look at what that means in this situation. That's not fair. Okay, so we've got this serving of pizza. You're at home, you're serving pizza after working all day. If the fairness were based solely on equity, that would mean that everyone would get exactly the same amount of pizza. If it were based on merit, how hard somebody worked, well, whoever worked the hardest gets the most. And if it were based solely on need, you eat what you need, and then you can have more if you need more. So you see how fairness can actually be defined just a little bit differently, even based on just this one scenario. Okay, let's go back. We'll come back to that in just a second. I want to go to another situation. Okay, so now you're 12-year-old. You've told your 12-year-old you are not allowed to go outside and hang out with your friends until your bed is made, your clothes are put away, and your art supplies are cleaned off the floor. And she looks at her little brother, her little 4-year-old brother, who is outside running around already. His bed is made, but Legos are all over the floor and his clothes are all over the place. And she's like, Mom, that's not fair. Okay, well, let's go back to the chart. So now we're talking about chores. Okay, doing chores. If we were basing fairness for chores solely on equity, everybody does the same, then that means everyone does the same thing to earn the same privilege. If we were basing it on what they deserved, the older child thinks, I'm doing more, so I should get more. Or if we were basing it on need, it would be, you're older, you need to have more responsibility, and you need to do this for yourself. Okay, my guess is you're starting to really understand where this is going because you can see the differences. You can see the nuances in these situations. But bear with me, I got one more scenario for you. Okay, so this situation, the whole family has been so excited about this movie that's coming out, and you buy movie tickets. Your kids are like, let's get there early so we can get the very best seats. Okay, so you walk into the movie theater and your children want to sit in the front row that's reserved for people with wheelchairs. And what do you say? No, honey, we can't sit there. Pick someplace else. Well, your daughter's like, no, I want to sit here. We're here first. That's not fair. Okay, let's go back to the chart. I know what you're thinking, but we're just going to keep going. Okay, so now we're talking about choosing movie seats. If we were basing fairness on everybody gets the same, well, we all paid the same price and we should have access to all the seats. Okay, if we were basing it on merit, we got here first, we should get to choose first. Okay. And if we were basing it on need, you don't need a special place to sit. Someone else might need that more than you. So you see, there are 3 different ways to define fairness. And you as parents, you understand that. The job is, how do we teach this to our children? Okay. Fairness is not always based on equity. Fairness is not always based on merit, and it isn't always based on need. Okay, fairness is situational. It just depends, right? And you know that, and I know that you know that, but where this gets kind of tricky, and in my mind really interesting, is how do we break this down so our children understand those 3 different ways to be fair, okay? So children start to understand the concept of fairness like right around 3 or 4 years old, but their concept of fairness is mostly just based on their own need. And for the most part, what researchers thought was that children that age really just based fairness on everybody gets the same. But in France, they did a really interesting study. Okay, I love this. So they took a bunch of 3-year-old children and they read them a story about 2 workers, okay? The first worker worked really, really hard to build a fence. The second worker was a bit of a slacker, didn't really work all that hard. Okay, so they read the kids this story, and then they gave the children each 3 cookies. And they told the children, give these cookies to the workers and be fair about it. So what was so interesting, and I forget the percentage, I'm sorry, but the children gave 1 cookie to the hard worker, 1 cookie to the slacker, and kept a cookie because the children didn't know what to do with it. And then the researchers said, you know what? You don't get to keep a cookie. You have to give that cookie away. 70% of the 3-year-olds gave the cookie to the hard worker. So even though a 3-year-old really is basing fairness on equity, he's beginning to understand merit and deservedness. Don't you find that fascinating? I think that is so interesting. So, as our children get older and their life experiences grow, they're going to see and understand the different ways that fairness is applied, the different situations that they can find themselves in. And so once you understand, well, and I know you understand that fairness is situational, but sometimes it's very difficult to take a concept that you understand so well and convey that to your children. Sometimes that is very, very difficult. But if you can lead your child into assessing each of these situations as they happen, think what that's going to do for him. So here's the absolute best part of all of this. At home, you're working on this stuff, on what does fairness really mean in this situation. You ask your child when he says, but that's not fair. Okay, what's not fair about this situation? And you start talking to him about it. And as you lead your child into the understanding of the different ways that fairness can be defined, he's going to take that with him when he goes to school. He's going to take that with him when he goes to baseball practice. He's going to take that with him into his life and start understanding that fairness is situational. Okay. I think that's really interesting. And that's why, guys, that's why I always say you are the most important teacher for your children. You can break this down for them in real time as these situations arise. So let's go back to our situations that we talked about earlier. We had the family working really hard. We had a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old. Now, the fairness there was, everybody in this family gets fed. If you need more pizza, you can get more pizza. That's more than likely what you would say. But that would be an each according to his need kind of thing, right? If you need more, take more. We don't have to have exactly the same. But if the situation were a teeny bit different, let's say you had 2 teenagers working, you'd have to order more pizza. But as the situation changes, and that's how you can help your child understand this, you can even say to your younger child, if you were also 14 years old and you worked all day moving rocks and dirt, you'd probably want 3 pieces also. Let's see what you can eat. If you need more, you can have more. Okay. Let's go back to the chores. Now, if the kids are the same age, of course they have to be held to the same standard. But you can help your older child understand, honey, when you were 4, the expectation was that you make your bed before you go outside. And that's what your little brother did. Now that you're older, more responsibility comes with that. So let's talk about why you think that's not fair. And you start helping your child understand that's how you're defining fairness in that situation. Now, the movie theater example is interesting because a lot of times when we've got little kids, they don't really think too much beyond themselves. It doesn't make them bad. It's just how their brains are working at those ages. But once you tell your child, yeah, I understand, you would really like to be in the front row, but let me tell you why that's there. And you educate your child on why it's there. And once your child understands, somebody who can't walk up these stairs and go down these skinny rows, they get to sit there. That makes sense. That's fair. I hope that this is helpful. I hope that you understand that fairness really is situational. And when your child gets upset with you and says, that's not fair, just ask them, okay, what isn't fair about this? And then help them break the situation down. So I really hope that was helpful. If you would like to talk to me some more about this or really about anything, I put a link above and you can make an appointment with me at any time. It'll just sync your calendar to my calendar, and then we can just chit chat about it. I would love to do that with you. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I always find these live sessions fun. It's so funny, you guys, because I used to do a lot of public speaking, and now I'm just talking to my computer. It's really different, I got to tell you, but I'm really, really enjoying it. So please make sure you are on next week for Dr. Julie Rickard and the mental health of our children. I think that's going to be a great session. So I also want to let you know we just finished up a master class, which was super fun for me. It's really only the second time I've brought that online to the online platform. And so that was really fun. We've got another one scheduled in October. If you want to know more about that, let me know, but just start looking for that. And that is about all I have for today. We have no questions. If you have any questions after this live session is over, just type them into the chat and I will be more than happy to answer them there. Have a wonderful afternoon and I'll see you next time. Bye.